Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Dog Walk. This is gonna be sort of a weird edition today because, frankly, it's not that I have a plan. I don't have a plan about what I want to talk about. It's that I have too many plans about what to talk about, and that's partly due to the fact that. Obviously, you might not you won't be able to see as or you wouldn't know unless I tell you as you're watching this. But I skipped the last 2 days of recording. First one being because it was literally minus 26 degrees Celsius outside, which is probably somewhere around minus 32, 33 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. So it was way too freezing. Daisy didn't even come out, and just trying to hold the camera would have frozen my hand. So I skipped that day, and then yesterday I was too exhausted because I actually did a 5-hour drive, well, 2.5 hour each way, road trip up to Montreal to go visit my grandfather. Yes, I am quite lucky. I got to introduce my son Felix to his great-grandfather, 98-year-old great-grandfather yesterday, which was something that was quite special. Felix got to meet his great-grandmother. He didn't know it while he was still in his mom's belly. Unfortunately, my grandmother passed away at 99 years old a few months ago, and crazy coincidence, or some may say there's no such thing as coincidence, but funnily enough, Faye was in labor the exact day of my grandma's funeral. So Felix got to kind of, or be in her presence in her last few days of life, even if he was still in his mom's belly. But yeah, yesterday he got to, I'll have to say that yesterday he got to meet his great-grandpa and his great-aunt, as actually, yes, yeah, my dad's sister, who, and that was quite special. I myself almost got to meet one of my grandparents. I was born in, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I was born in Germany on a Canadian military base. I'll tell that story another day of how that happened, because there is some funny stuff behind it. My mom, who was in the military, actually had to leave the military to go to the military base in Germany with my dad, who wasn't in the military. But anyway, so the story that I was told is that actually my great-grandmother passed away as I was in the airplane over the Atlantic for my first trip back to Canada. My parents moved back to Canada when I was 1 year, just over 1 year old. But when I was a few months old, as I was heading back, my great-grandmother passed away while I was, like I said, over the Atlantic. And my mom always said, she firmly believes that if only her family had told her that I was coming, great-grandma would have held on long enough to meet me. But hey, that's in the past, so might not have happened for me, but I am so grateful that I was able to make it happen for my own son. And nowadays, with the wonders of technology, I've got the videos and the photos too, so that's something that's never gonna go away. Anyway, all that to say, I was completely exhausted when I got back home yesterday. It was a big day, so haven't recorded, but also that's a lot of events and things to think about. So as I was saying at the top of this, I kind of have too many things that I want to talk about right now, and I don't really know where to start. I'm also realizing that a lot of the topics that I want to talk about are, I guess, perhaps increasingly complex, or if not complex, at least require a lot of, how do I say, background in order to get there. I mean, I've got a feeling that all the points that I want to make are either connected or interdependent and require context and time and explanation, which just can't give in one video. And I don't really know where to start because there's too many points I want to make, and I don't know which point I want, which what I want to reach first. So yeah, that's kind of my struggle for today. I don't know, is this something that that happens to you? Actually, maybe, yeah, that's what I'll talk about. Right, is this normal? I've got a feeling that it might not be. I look around me, and one of the things that I kind of always ask myself is, well, in general sense, why people are the way they are, but more specifically, why does girls? Why? There's nothing there. Come on. Why does? I don't know. I'm gonna say it in a very blunt manner, and it's probably not accurate, but like, why does everyone seem like they want to be ordinary? Why does everyone seem like they want to fit in the mold? And I don't know if that's just an impression that I'm getting, maybe as a result of our current culture and social media and this and that. And I've got a feeling that's a huge reason or factor why, right? When every single move that you made, come on girls, is constantly scrutinized by everyone else, and a single, mistake or misstatement can get you quote unquote canceled. For those who care about, what others think or about social contact, I mean, it's kind of hard to step out and go against the mold when anything that you say can and will be held against you and taken out of context, and it makes it so much easier to try to fit into the mold and be like everyone else than it is to actually develop a personality or an opinion of your own. And I'm hoping that this is just this is not actually the truth, but and just an illusion that's caused by social media, but I've got a fear that it isn't, and that increasingly more and more it isn't. Sorry, Daisy business. I will be back in a second. Okay, so as I was saying, I've got a feeling that that's actually becoming more and more the case, and that's mostly again because of technology, internet, and social media. For now, where do I want to go with this? Which one first? I'll say, I'll stay with the for now. But hopefully I'll remember to talk about the tomorrow too. After that, so quickly, one of the main causes for this, or two big causes for this, I think right now, is curated content, which itself causes kind of the second aspect of it, which is confirmation bias. So what are those two things? Well, most of you will know, hopefully, what curated content is. But what it means is that, I think Mistra just saw us. Mistra, come, Mistra. Oh my god. Ugh. Whew. Don't know if that was a squirrel, a rabbit, or something, but whew. Yeah. So, as most of you, when you go on uh, and get your news or whatever content, I'll say news to start. Let's say and I'm gonna use U.S. terms, even though I'm not from the U.S. Because hopefully that's what that's gonna connect with more people, or more people will get the point that way. Actually, yeah, let's try this. Let's go to 0.6 zoom. The dogs keep getting out of frame. Oh, and they're all tangled. Great job, girls. Woo! The joys of walking 2 dogs, 2 leashes that are retractable with only 1 hand free. So what was I saying? Yeah, so to use U.S. political terms, let's say you are a Democrat and you go to read your news. And you're an old person, so you get your news from actual news sources, not from your TikTok feed. Are you gonna connect to Fox News? Is that something you're gonna do? Probably not, right? Where are you gonna get your news from? CNN or something like that, right? As a liberal, when are you gonna try and understand, or the information that you seek? Sorry, I'll put it that way. The information that you seek, and I say as a liberal, the exact same thing is true for the other side, right? As a Republican, you for sure are gonna connect to Fox News, and you're never right. CNN is lying and blah blah blah, right? That's confirmation bias, or that feeds confirmation bias. Basically, it's, imagine a debate where in the debate room, the only people that are actually there are people who all agree with you. How useful is that debate going to be, or what are you going to accomplish, right? Like nothing. You people nowadays, because there's so much content, so much information, so many options curated to anything, right? When you're talking from sports content to TV shows, to news, to anything else, right? People pick and choose, even streaming, right? People pick and choose what they want when they want it, and most people, because they do not like discomfort, because they do not, or as Galt says oftentimes, it's a lot easier to scam someone than it is to convince someone that they have been scammed. And I think that really resonates with this point. What people don't want to feel like they might be wrong, or to think they might be wrong. So what do? They only listen to sources of information that agree with notions, with their own opinion. And that happens on both sides of the aisle. So what happens is that as everyone only goes to their side of the aisle, I'll say, and obviously I'm using politics, but this applies to everything. As everyone stays on their side, and you can say that racial divide or this or that, what happens is that you only get that point of view repeated over and over and over again, and the only glimpse that you get of the other side are attacks on it, right? Because people want to reinforce their views again. So all you get is a caricature of the other side. So, for liberals, any and every Republican is a MAGA Trump supporter, inbred redneck who doesn't understand anything in the world and who's a racist, blah, blah, blah. And for every Republican, every liberal is, like libtard, snowflake, who, anyway, I'm sure you, without me throwing a bunch of insults to both sides, I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say, right? So you only get a caricature of the other side, never a true representation of their argument. So of course, if you only ever look at caricatures, well, the other side is always going to look like a buffoon or a clown, right? And on top of that, within your own side, well, how do people get ahead? Or how do people, I've got the French word, démarquer. How do people stand out? Yeah, that's a word. From the rest, right? So that they can progress in their political power or get more views or followers or this and that, right? Well, the only way to do that is not by being more moderate and more reconciliatory. Whoa, pardon my stumble there. Towards the other side. Oh, sorry, I have to pull the girls. I noticed yesterday or the day before there was some blood on the street. I don't want them licking that. So anyway, if you're trying to be closer to moderate and to kind of appeal towards more of a middle path, well, all you're doing in your side's eyes is trying to get closer to, as I said, clowns and buffoons. So that doesn't make sense. No one wants that, right? So the only way that people get ahead or stand out is by becoming, having a more radical argument than the other guy. So what you take that and you compound it over a few cycles, and what happens to the middle? There is no middle anymore, because everyone both sides every time get a little bit more extreme and a little bit more out of touch with what the other side actually wants, to the point where there is no more middle, and all you have is a huge chasm, a huge gap in between the two. And how is that useful to anyone? How can you resolve any problem? How can you, you're in a relationship and you have an argument. Are you ever going to resolve the argument if you don't try to compromise or try to understand what your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever is trying, or what their concern is, right? No, that's how you get to a breakup, right? So, the internet, all these pay to choose cable channels, all these self-serve internet websites, forums, Reddits, this and that, the only thing they really serve is widening the gap and the divide between your opinion and the other side, and that's very comforting. It's very easy for you, for your brain to, it's comforting, right? To feel like you're right, because the more you read, the more you find out, the more you research, the more info you see to support your point and to ridicule the other side. But what you're not realizing is that the only information that you're seeking, or that you're actually reading, is it's from your side, made to reinforce your side, and made to ridicule or attack the other one. So there's no way, sorry, I got distracted. Girls, this way. Got distracted, putting the business in the garbage bin. Anyway, I think you get my point. It's very comforting, but also it's tearing us apart, literally. And that's again true for everything, right? Whether you're talking of I won't give more examples. I'm sure you get it by now. So that's the first problem. I think I haven't fully expressed it, but I think you get the point that I'm trying to make here. So everyone just goes more and more to their side, and that's not. Oh yeah, I was trying to be to say, why does everyone want to be ordinary, right? Or why? Yeah, I'm getting very far off track. How that relates to my point is, again, it's comforting, right? To know that you're right, and to be a part of your tribe. And what does being a part of your tribe entail for most people? Well, it's conforming. It's not being extraordinary. It's not voicing the dissenting opinion in the room. It's not questioning everything. It's taking everything that your side has to say for cash or as gospel, treating it as your Bible, and yeah, that just breeds conformity, right? Like how could it not? Because you're never exposed to the true argument or vision of the other side. Of course, you'll never consider it, and of course, that'll just make you want to conform even more to what your side is saying. And then, by conforming to a part of their side, then you kind of get roped into having to support all and every other thing that everyone else has to say on that side, whether or not you agree with it, right? So it's kind of almost impossible nowadays to be, a fiscal conservative, but a social Democrat or liberal, right? That's just not a possibility, or it's not possible to be to have strong, let's say, traditional Christian values, but also think that we need to change the way we're doing things before we all burn with global warming, right? You just can't have both of those opinions at the same time in our society nowadays, because if you voice, let's say, support or like concern about global warming, well, then you're going to get all the accolades from the left side, and any quote-unquote right-sider who would have been following you or whatever will just leave because you're not giving them the message that they want to hear. And then you go ahead and a week later you voice support for sound fiscal policy, and now that all your quote-unquote right-wing supporters have left, now you're saying something that your left-wing supporters or followers don't agree with, and now they all leave, right? And you lose your entire community. So what do, right? And that's for, let's say, a content creator. I say that as if, but that applies to everyone, right? Whether you have 2 Twitter followers, 200,000 Twitter followers, or even 0, and you're just talking about, your circle of friends, right? So that just forces everyone down the conformity path, and it takes a lot. And I was unfortunately probably too much courage for most people to do, right? To be able to say, hey, I'm going to actually not just look at my side, I'm going to see what the other side actually has to say. I'm going to make up my own mind, and more importantly, I'm going to make up my own mind on every topic individually. I'm not going to blanket accept the entire book and dogma of this side or this group, just because I agree with one thing that they say, and they just happen to get to me first before the other side, right? And then I fell down the rabbit hole, and I just, you gobble it all up, right? So, yeah, I think that's a huge problem with our society. And I know I've been rambling a bit too long, and I'm sorry, big problem of mine. But that brings me to kind of the second point that I wanted to mention, or the second part, which is the future, right? You take that splintering of opinions or of group, or that, I don't know what the proper term is, that kind of tribalization of everyone that's occurring in real time, and you project that into the future. And what does the world look like? I know, going back in my mind, that I remember as I was a kid, there was a whole lot more debate. There was, both sides presented on the news most of the time. When you saw the news, blah, 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 that's not a thing anymore. And as it becomes more and more easy to curate all the content that you consume, it's going to become more and more and more easy to, or difficult, I should say, to not fall into the trap of conforming to everything. And we see that happening all the time. There's no longer anything that, or many things that bring everyone together at the same time. We are losing by wanting to become more individuals and making everyone special and this and that, and curating everything to everyone's immediate wants and desires. We're losing that sense of community, right? No longer are you limited by when this TV show airs on Thursdays at 8 p.m. It's one of the 4 TV shows that airs at that time, and everyone in the country is watching one of those 4 shows, and at the same time. And when they come back to work, the next day around the water cooler, they all have something to talk about, which brings them all together. And hey, you might be a fan of, I'm not going to quote old shows because most of you probably won't know what I'm talking about. But let's say you've got, 4 networks with category A, B, C, and D, right? Well, you might be a network A watcher, but and you watch that for most of your time. But now there's this one thing that's going on network B, that one show on Tuesdays at 8 that everyone's talking about, and that makes you curious because you hear people talking about it around the water cooler, and you start to watch it, and suddenly you're it's more easy to be open to trying out at least something else, something that you're not used to, I guess, because it happens at the same time. Everyone talks about it, and it can pique your interest, and you can respect someone for something else, and say, okay, well, maybe I'll trust their opinion and I'll try it out. And that is not much, but it is something that can bring people together. Nowadays, we don't even have that anymore. We had it for a little while with stuff like Marvel comics, movies, MCU and all that. But now with streaming, or with YouTube, right? You've got creators that have literally billions of followers or hundreds of millions of followers who you've never even heard of, I'm sure, because everything is consumed on demand, so not at the same time, so you don't have kind of that cultural phenomenon anymore. I think the last big one was probably Game of Thrones, and we all know how that ended. That was not cool, but there's no cultural incentive for because everything's not happening at the same time, so it kind of fizzles out, right? Like, I just now watched Loki season 2. I'm a huge Marvel nerd. Obviously, it's because of the baby, and I wanted to wait for the spouse so that we could watch it together, and blah blah blah. And that's not gonna happen. We don't have time. So I decided to watch it on there, whatever. But the point is that I missed out on the opportunity to speak about that show to my two friends when they came by to visit after Alex passed, because I hadn't watched it yet, and they had. Or 5 years ago, it's all we would do, right? Like every other weekend, literally, I would go down there. Sorry, Daisy's barking at ice skaters. I would go down there and we'd spend hours talking about, the latest Marvel movie, or what happened in the last episode of Game of Thrones, or this or that. And it was a point of connection. And now, since we're not, content isn't released, or it's all dumped, right? And you don't watch it at the same time. Hopefully you get the point I'm trying to make. It's so much harder to have that conversation, or you have, like I said, these huge creators that you probably won't even have heard about. But go back 30 years, anyone who would have had the equivalent of 100 million followers, for sure you heard about them, because they're going to be in the news, they're going to be in our tablets, they're going to be in all, right? Like, everything, there's so many more quote-unquote stars now that no one really is a star. And I know that's a huge exaggeration, but hopefully you get the point that I'm trying to make. So, yeah, all that to say that we're losing that fabric that connects us, and that just reinforces the echo chamber, the point that I was just mentioning earlier, which means that, again, you're not exposed as much, and blah, 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 all the other points that I just made, right? You're more isolated because you don't have that fabric, so you become more dependent on the general consensus to shape your opinion or your taste, is the point that I was trying to make. And that's just going to keep becoming even more and more of a thing as things go on, as your TikTok feed learns, or your YouTube algorithm, or whatever you say, learns your preferences, and only basically just feeds you whatever you want. Give me all the Big Macs, all the double down sandwiches, or whatever it is, right? Just plug it directly into my veins, right? Because that hits that little spike of dopamine, which might make you stay on their website for a quarter of a second more, which will give them from you 10 cents more ad revenue, but for the platform or the company itself, it's millions of dollars, right? So you're incentivized to lobotomize you with what you want and not challenge you, unless you purposely force the algorithm to provide you content that will challenge you. But how many people do that? Probably not that many, looking by the subscriber numbers of many of the channels that I follow. right? People want to, quote unquote, I hear this all the time, right? I would just want to turn my brain off and scroll, right? Why do you want to turn your brain off? Since when has that been a good thing? Like, I get it for a little bit, for a little while, everyone needs a break, but, come on, like, be honest, tell the truth. Like, is it really just a little break and just a little while, or is it every single time you consume content that you want to turn your brain off? I've got a feeling that for a big majority, it's the second, not the, and for too few, it's the first. So it's not for your own good that YouTube is feeding, or that TikTok is feeding you that, 700th meme video or dance or whatever, right? Or that 600th Marvel theory video from that YouTube channel, right? It's for their own good, and no one seems to realize that. Let's see, where else do I want to go with this? Yeah, and I think it's even going to get worse, and hopefully you'll know where I'm going with this when I mention the movie Idiocracy. If you don't know that movie, it's something that I would highly recommend. It's one of those movies that is sad, but a little bit too close to truth, especially when you look at what they kind of, like, how their society is predicted. I'll go back. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the movie. I guess I'll mention the premise is they do an experiment like in 2000 or something like that. It's an older movie where the U.S. Army wants to cryogenically freeze people, and in order to get good data, they want to take the most possible average male and female that they can find, and freeze them for a few months and blah blah blah. And something happens and they end up being frozen for 500 years, and when they wake up, the society that Mike Judge portrays in the movie is, like I said, maybe hits a little bit too close to home, because he thought it would take 500 years, but it feels like we're almost there. And what happens, or his premise is, or what creates that society, is that, well, for 500 years, he's got this great montage where basically, you've got two couples side by side, and one of them is, a couple of doctors, surgeons, something like that, and the other one is a, hillbilly couple from the South. I hope that's not too offensive. I'm sure I offended too many people, but whatever. And what happens is the doctors, every time they get interviewed, they're like, oh, we're not ready to have kids in this financial market, blah, blah, it's not responsible, we want to wait, blah, 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 blah. And they end up basically waiting too long, or, having one child or adopting a child. Meanwhile, Bubba and his wife and his second wife and his third wife have, 20 children, who each have 20 children, and it doesn't take Einstein to realize that if all the smart people have one kid or 0 kids, and all the dumb people, because that's what they're portrayed as in the movie, have 20 kids, well, you progress that over 500 years, and sorry, but the dummies are gonna outnumber the smart people very quickly. And so yeah, when those people wake up 500 years in the future, basically they are by far the smartest people in the world, literally. And they resolve the whole world's problem. But anyway, I won't spoil more of the movie. Highly recommended, even if it's an older movie. Highly recommended for the point that it makes. And I think, unfortunately, that's where our society is heading. We are glamorizing, the cash and caviar and the hip-hop lifestyle and the mooching and the, the striving to become a content creator, not an astronaut or a doctor or this or that. And you take the trend that there currently is in the society and you project that for a few generations, and I'm truly worried. Like, I really hope that our AI overlords will have taken over and by then and guide us to a better place, because if we just keep always catering to the lowest common denominator, because that's how you get your party elected, that's how you keep your clout in your community, that's how you stay popular, gain more followers, or this or that, right? It's by catering to the lowest common denominator. Well, we're just heading for a cliff, it seems. A cliff of mediocrity, really. And I just don't see how we're gonna get out of that. It's not necessarily too late, but just like global warming, if we don't wake up very soon, and we're in trouble. And the big problem is I just don't see how we can wake up, because for every person who's gonna listen to, one thought-provoking video, or who's gonna question, their preconceived notions, you've got 1,000 people who don't ever do that. So even if you throw the solution out, even if you have a solution and you say it and you shout it out at the rooftops, feels like no one's listening, or so few people are listening that, as per that movie that came out last year, no one wants to look up, right? Even though the asteroid is coming, no one wants to look up, right? So, yeah, I don't know how to make a better world in those circumstances. And that's very, very, very worrying, very discouraging that that's the current trend. And that's why, so do I want to mention? Yeah, that's a topic for another video. But I kind of feel like maybe she was 50 or 100 years ahead of her time. But it kind of feels like someone should be starting to work on creating that society, finding out who John Galt is, right? And creating that little society where actual achievement is praised as opposed to cronyism. And for those of you who don't know, I'm referring to Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, which is another very thought-provoking but quite long, I'm thinking, for most people, book. And I won't. I'll say that'll be a topic for another day, because it's a very interesting one too. But hopefully, a few people got the reference. Sorry, I'm getting tangled here. Sorry for the spin. It's crazy to see that. See, everything's melted when it was, like I said, minus 30 degrees 2 days ago. But anyway, it's like -1 right now, -1 Celsius. So, yeah, are we screwed? I hope not, but how do we get out of this tailspin? It's not like you can just decide to get rid of all the dumb people and just restart, right? Like, unfortunately, that's kind of the solution in the book, but in real life, that's kind of almost bordering on eugenics, right? And I don't need to explain why that's probably not a good idea. Although, everyone can make a positive argument for almost every point of view, and the problem is that positive argument. Sure, if you treat it in isolation, it might convince you that something like eugenics is a good idea, but you need to take a step back and look at the broader context and see that the negative consequences, whether they outweigh the positive or anyway, I'm not going to start to talk about eugenics here. My point is more that I don't think that we can resolve this problem because people want to be, numbed. I'm not just talking about drinking a whole bunch of alcohol or smoking a bunch of weed or prescription pills or whatever it is. I mean, people just don't want to challenge themselves. People don't want to be extraordinary. That's the only way that I can frame it. That's how I see it. Too few people want to be extraordinary. There are still some people. It's not over yet, but it's like, how do I say it? Everyone, especially in the new generation or so I hear, everyone feels and is told their entire life that they are the most special, unique, individual snowflake, and basically that the world revolves around them, but no one actually wants to earn that. They just feel like they deserve it, right? And anyway, I was thinking about this. I wish I could translate the lyrics of the song En Berne by the Cowboy Fringants, a Québécois group. Like, they're kind of, most of their songs have kind of a political message or a social message or something like that. But they have a great quote talking about the province of Quebec, which is dans ce royaume de la poutine, on se complaint dans médiocrité, bien satisfait de notre routine et du bonheur préfabriqué. In this kingdom of the poutine, or let's say the hamburgers for the US, where everyone's happy in mediocrity and we're satisfied with our routine, watching whatever we want, like with our routine and our prefabricated happiness. That's quite the lyric to unpack. I'll let you consider it and how that relates, but this is something they were singing 20 years ago. Maybe not 20, at least 15 years ago, and it's just getting worse. But and I was also thinking about this just to provide another thing, because I disagreed with an interview there was on the news that I saw this morning with Michael Bublé, who's a famous singer, crooner, and in the interview he says, I forget the question, but basically he answers everyone wants to be extraordinary, and kind of find your spark, find that one thing that makes you unique and pursue it, and keep working at it and you'll be extraordinary too. And I listened to that and I'm thinking, man, how out of touch are you as a very successful person to think that that's true of most people. I think I'll close the talk here because Daisy wants to go home. Daisy's pulling one way and Mistra's pulling the other. So I think I'm just at home. But yeah, I think what Michael Bublé said is completely false. I think what I just said explains why those who are successful or some people want to be extraordinary, but I think those people are rare and a dying breed, and we need to find a way to bring them back. So on that note, thanks for listening. I hope you can give me all your comments, opinions. What do you think? Yeah, do all the social stuff, spread the message. I guess it's the only way to change things. So thanks for listening.